Hello, comrades, and welcome to another episode of my Withering State Let's Play series of, well, the demo, so not really, maybe a full-length Let's Play. This is a game set in a fictional, somewhat, best I can describe it as communist, state around a similar historical epoch to the fall of the Berlin Wall in our own world, though they call them Maxivists instead of Marxists in this universe, and there's other differences. Now there's been some updates to the demo since I last did, play it, because it's been in rapid development, I guess, since Steam NextFest. Apparently now I can scroll through stuff in the dialogue. Like scroll up, see what was there before. There's an exclamation mark there, but I select it, nothing. Historical dominance of the Vesavian elite led Tedian to adopt a policy of anti-chauvinism to unite the disparate nations of Sudlivia. Yes, so I'm not yet the General Secretary of the Sudlivian, I guess, People's Republic. People's Republic of Sudlivia. And there's Wallachia. Large industrious Wallachia can be called the most independent of the non-founding signatories of the AYP, despite stronger ideological affinity with Alanormia due to its staunchly Maxivist and centralized model of government. Wallachia holds a special relationship with Yevka because of the latter's return of the historic territory of East Deskia in 1931. Wallachia experienced a famine after implementing harsh grain distribution. Okay, so it's a bit of a kind of a parallel to Ukraine, is what this nation is. Wallachia, People's Republic of Wallachia, like Ukraine within the Soviet Union. Oh, and here's Alanormia up here. The superpower adversary to Vespuka, the FSR Federal Socialist Republics of Alanormia, are the second largest economy in the world and the ideological center of communism. Currently led by the energetic reformist Manfred Chopin, the Union of 15 Republics has undergone severe political and economic stability during Chopin's attempts to decentralize and democratize the country. The Alanormia-Yekva Pact, which Alanormia is the dominant force, has lost cohesion as states like Sorbonne that come to the similar demands of reform, without Alanormian support for continuity of one-party rule. Pro-Western government led by Premier Albin Sneg has sought to leave the AYP, remove communist symbols, and introduce market forms, so they're going capitalist. Wherever they are, the Sorbonne. The debacle has served as a striking example of what happens when control is lost over reform, giving significant ammunition to now Chancellor Chopin's detractors. The uncertainty of Alanormian military presence in Sorbonne, and whether it continue accepting the country's westward shift, has escalated into a major political issue. Well, yeah, capitalism will bring horrendous suffering to people. Funny, we live in a world where Fox News, I think it was, which of course you can always scoff at them, but they were literally sitting there and trying to say, I think it was Fox, the clip I saw there. If you would a bunch of democratic socialists take over the government, then Israel would be treated like South Africa in the 80s. It's facepalm. Serious facepalm. They apparently think that it was a bad thing what happened to South Africa, the way they said that and like other things they've said before. That's how racist and unhinged these bastards are. That they think that the triumph of freedom over oppression, democracy over tyranny, and good over evil that was the fall of apartheid South Africa was a bad thing. That's the kind of scumbags that capitalism empowers and will always empower in the end. So, yeah, no, I have no patience for people who think that the fall of communism was a good thing. reform was definitely necessary, and democratization, which is what Gorbachev, who's Chopin's analog, obviously was trying to do. But, you know, reform without the whole system collapsing, unfortunately. And better to be cautious reform than have the whole system collapse. There would have been time to take on more gradual forms if the Soviet Union hadn't collapsed. They would have had, you know, 30 more years of gradual form if they'd just been a little more cautious. Gorbachev was far too aggressive. Things he wanted to do, many of them need to be done, but not so quickly. Anyways, what's next on the itinerary? That's the structure of things. The government right now. Oh, situations. Thriving academic humanities. A long tradition of prioritization, state support has led to humanities disciplines, including the study of literature, philosophy, and history, to routinely produce world-renowned scholars. It's because this country is Yugoslavia-inspired, and Yugoslavia did indeed have thriving humanities when it was a communist period. Large military reserves. With an extensive system of conscription training for territorial defense, a large number of reservists can be mobilized to defend the nation, if need be. Accessible, quality education. Compulsory education. A large system of public universities has ensured access to quality education is available to even the most rural communities. Homelessness eradicated. That was indeed true of pretty much any country that was communist for long, because housing was considered a human right. Decades of efforts to build a surplus of state-provided housing has ensured that homelessness, which is also illegal, has been all but eradicated. Medea, thriving coastal, densely populated and highly urbanized, the economy of Medea has been flourishing through its maritime industry and the presence of commercial traffic passing by the strait. But there's a rural depression, Moncherno. Falling investment, rising unemployment. This is why it's better if you have more central control over things. You can push investment into areas like this, which apparently this country decentralized their economy somewhat in the past. You know, state planning, that is. Central planning actually produces faster economic growth than Soviet Union during its state planning heavy decades before the 80s, when they were decentralized under Gorbachev. Faster economic growth in Western countries, and indeed even in the US. Falling investment, rising unemployment, and reduced access to urban services has contributed to a sharp difference in living standards between Moncherno and the rest of the country, punctuated by a skyrocketing rate of failing collective farms. Something's got to be done about that. Academic alcohol abuse. Always a significant issue. It's increased in recent years. Ineffective legislator. While continually constitutionally equipped to be the most powerful branch of government, the legislature has been rendered a nearly non-existent force due to exceedingly short sessions, loyalist politicians, and the primacy of the ruling party. That needs to be dealt with. Nereus territorial dispute. The Thracian Federation continues to control the military enclave on the island of Nereus, an internationally recognized territory of Sudlivia. That's the area that's hashtag there. Hash there. Thracian naval presence now continues to be a barrier to commercial traffic in the region, and widespread corruption. Informal networks of patronage among political officials, a widespread culture of exchanging gifts and favors, and an inability to receive certain goods in a timely manner without bribery has led to the perception of corruption at all levels. Alright. Interesting, but I didn't want to just read all this stuff. There's supposed to be like a meeting or something. Come on. The itinerary should have a thing. Let's just show my characters. There's no descriptions of this. Oh, party reformists. Those who believe the party should loosen its monopoly in state power, embracing democratization, decentralization, or pluralism versus hardliners. Originates the term to describe faithful adherence to orthodox Marxism. The term now commonly refers to those who believe state power must be concentrated in the party. NEP, New Economic Policy, supports new economic policies and Martidian's novel economic policy, Yekvin self-management, otherwise is attempt to introduce market relations to socialist economies versus 5-year plans. Though not always taking this shape, supporters of central economic planning have identified with the famous 5-year plans that symbolized industrialization in the socialist world. being in this quadrant is ideally probably what would best describe me, a reformist, but 5-year plans. But have to get rid of that cigar. The guy's smoking for some reason. Smoking is bad for you. Oh, upcoming events. Here we go. Meeting with First Secretary Annette Istri. By the way, it's been a bit since my last video, partly because I've had some health issues. I was in and out of the ER a few times. Not fun. I met with Istri at the regional headquarters of the Istrian ASCP, a modestly tall concrete building near the center of Sistrine. Yep, that's just the Communist Party of the state. Here's the scroll bar, by the way, with a canopy of plants on its roof, and a large spherical glass chamber on the side facing the square. The building stood out as one of the early experiments in socialist modernism from the 1930s. Plants on the roof, yeah, that's actually quite pretty. Although people will probably photograph the building after the photo of communism when there's no more plants and pretend it was, and of course admit that from how beautiful the building probably was and well maintained the building. Spherical glass chamber on the side facing the square, that sounds nice. But the idea of the roof where the distant sun could be seen melting towards the western mountains. Anastas Istri, the Istrian poet, Marino, wrote that it was the most beautiful sunset in the world on the Istrian coast. An exaggeration typical vulgar bourgeois poetry. Well, yeah, certainly an exaggeration. I don't know if it's vulgar, though. His birthplace was renamed after him. Long-serving member of the Security Council. I like this music, it's a little calmer. Not a fan of old poetry? This is a very interesting building, why don't we have more like it? And see why you were the Minister of Culture, that sounds tongue-in-cheek. What do you want to speak about? This is a very interesting building, why don't we have more like it? You think so? I knew the architect and had him design many buildings in Istria. The early revolution was a time of great experimentation in all fields of art. I'm afraid that Chairman Krasny was not a fan of many of these experiments. He's the super hardliner guy, like Stalin analog. Took over following Titian's assassination. Took over as Chairman of the Security Council, position at the time reduced to merely military as well as ceremonial authority, a strong proponent of the Alnormian model. Krasny leveraged the position to outmaneuver his opponents. Secured great power. Became General Secretary, built a cult of personality, purges of political rivals, which doesn't always mean death, but removal from the party, and often embarrassment and career consequences, if nothing else, sometimes periods in prison. So, he and other Orthodox Marxists took Maxov seriously when he said that our material conditions transform our nature as humans. Well, it's true. And you can see this even just in how people act differently based on where they live. I've seen this with roommates and stuff. I've seen this where I've lived myself, even when I'm staying with family. Your behavior changes drastically based on where you reside, what your material conditions are. If you're living in poverty or more comfortably, etc. Architecture, then, must instill in us a vision of what it is like to live in a socialist society. That's precisely why I agree on that. When our first priority was to eradicate homelessness, we still invested in structures as grandiose and celebratory as the Grand Sudlivian Metro and Vizhgovo, like some of the really nice subway stations in Soviet Union. This sounds less tongue-in-cheek now. Not a fan of old poetry? On the contrary, I'm a great admirer of old poets. There is a reason why Marino is required reading in any Istrian school. The guy who said it was the most beautiful sunset in the world. Of course, socialist realist poetry strikes the truer and contains the values of the revolution. But no true revolutionary hates the past. A good test to remember. More than that. You can't understand the present without understanding the past. A communist has no time for such moralism. As to hate the past, he means. I can see why you're the minister of culture. That is amusing to hear. I thought the job was an acquired taste when Chairman Krasny put me on it the first time. You just needed someone good at enforcement. We needed artists to start conforming to socialist realism, the language of the working class. Any one of us could have done it. The old generation, the revolutionaries, they read everything there was to read about art, literature, philosophy. As indeed many of them did. Philosophy, communism is a whole philosophy. As Friedrich Lehn said, to be a communist, you must enrich yourself with all the treasures of mankind. Beckman Bohr, an Eleanormian entrepreneur, sociologist, and philosopher, was a financial supporter, student, and later collaborator of Klaus Makov. Born to a wealthy family in a certain river valley industrialist region of Yekva with a historical Eleanormian population, became involved in political activity in early age. After publishing a sociological accounts of the conditions of industrial laborers who left Yekva for Eleanormia. So he's exactly like Engels, like Marx and Engels. Engels was born into wealth initially, but published accounts of the conditions of the working class, earning the enmity of many of the bourgeois, the rich, at the same time as eventually becoming a leader of the early communist movements. At the First International and stuff, Engels was quite influential, and as was Marx. Not like many of the fools in the party today, who, I guess, don't enrich themselves with the treasures of mankind. He smiled humorously. I don't mean you, of course. What did you want to speak about? Let's sit down first. I really like this music. It's very... Let's turn it up so you guys can hear it if you couldn't before. Let's sit down first. My bones are aching from those stairs. Reflects the peaceful place where this meeting takes place. We made our way over to a table. This is a nice place, or I'm glad to have your wisdom, Anastas. It seems nicer. He laughed. Every old man has his wisdom, or his rambling. Let me know if mine ever crosses into the other territory. Wisdom to rambling. We haven't had a real chance to speak after everything that's happened. You've come a long way. I remember voting for your appointment to the Security Council like it was yesterday. I'm sure it's been a hard time for you. More and more work pushed to the Premier's desk. Yet you made the best of it. Now you are seen before me as the chairman. And how do you feel? Are you ready for the responsibility you now seek? Feel good I'm ready for this, or it doesn't matter how I feel, I have a duty. Well, it may have been a woman. It doesn't matter how I feel, I have a duty. The country, the people. Perhaps that's the right idea. Do not neglect yourself, though. You have a duty to the party, not just to serve, but to keep yourself in good condition. You're not as lucky to be chairman during the middle years of Blanco's tenure, when things became so glacial that I even considered a quiet retirement. He thought that he could hold the country together by balancing cadres against each other, like chess pieces. Historically, that often does work for a while, but it leads to issues that stew and don't get fixed. Not to mention the occasional concession to either the liberals or the crassness. So the capitalists or the hardline communists. But now we know that these divisions in the party were only waiting for a chance to explode. Perhaps, but if people were made to wait long enough, sometimes they lose some of their vim and vigor. And while politics may be frozen if the economic system works, which does not in capitalism, by the way. This is why things keep getting worse for ordinary people. But in a socialist system with worker ownership of, sometimes you just need politics to stay still so people can improve their lives without politics getting in the way of it too much. Without, let's reform this way, then that way, then this way. Sometimes you just need stability. As the chairman, you've risen above those divisions. For now. President Peto's recent legislative support has bolstered your position. But he has also shown his hand. He has other motives at work. Indeed, I don't trust him. I like this music. Speaking of that, do you trust Kios? Who's Kios? You don't earn respect me, I'll have removed. That's need to earn the party's support. Speaking of that, do you trust who's Kios? Well, yes, he is the perfect model of a the officer, Sudlivian officer, uninvolved in politics, loyal to a fault. Peto will use the appointment as an excuse to show his hand, I believe. I hope their attempts to engineer such inoffensive military men has not compromised their ability. Comrade Bernino would know more about that, however. He's worked with them extensively. The same member of the Security Council. Guys all but retired but been called back. One more reason I'm back, to learn more about this new admiral. For now, I believe that you can rely on him. I need to earn the party's support. Indeed, and it will not be an easy time to do so. A lot of deputies are firmly in the hardliner or reformist camp. Their support will hinge on your policies. Keeping the approval of the national secretariats of the party will also serve you well. Not straying too far on one side could help get support. They can choose things, policies, based on what pragmatically seems most useful. Between the reformists and the hardliners, keeping the approval of national secretariats will also serve you well. But Peto is an issue. If you not have so much sway with the deputies in the Central Committee, I'd advocate for replacement as soon as possible. Elected during Party Congress in turn selects the Politburo, the Central Committee, a small group of party leaders that guides policy. The relationship is parallel by that of the legislature and the standing organ, such as the Congress of Deputies and Security Council. Or this relationship is. Tell me more about the party's national secretariats. The secretariats were created to minister party policy to each constituent nation. It was an unusual structure among socialist states. In Alnormia, there is federalism on the constitutional level. while Yakuba does not recognize divisions among national lines. Federalisms, though technically separate countries, like in the Soviet Union, where like Ukraine operated as a separate country, so did Baltic states, so did Kazakhstan, etc. It's actually part of how the Great Famine, the Holodomor in Ukraine happened, is because the head of the Communist Party there was a racist, genocidal Russian who instrumentalized a famine into a genocide. It was not planned by Stalin, as people try to claim, just because they want to put everything on the leader of a country. It was planned by the head of the Ukrainian Communist Party, the secretariat, if you will, of that state. Stalin did not bring about sufficiently severe consequences, yet a few people put to death about it, and for a long time he turned a blind eye to it. So his behavior was unacceptable, but it was not his plan. Chairman Krasny opposed the federal model. On the other hand, the Great Purge was his plan, was his idea. Anyways, Krasny opposed the federal model, holding that only the party was needed. His side won out during Tishian's tenure. Chairman Mazek, however, was the one who entitled national leaders to popular membership, which can lead to power grabbing, which can lead to a country breaking apart in pieces and civil war, like happened in Yugoslavia. Mazek was very wrong about what he did. It was a stupid idea. That reform needs to be rolled back. Some reforms are good, others are bad. That's a bad reform. It may indeed be this has made the body less efficient at prompt decision making. It's not why that's not why it's an issue. It's that it creates the potential for nationalism. And this new generation of leaders and hatred and racism. Those new generation leaders who do not have the way their predecessors did. Chairman Blanco knew what he was doing. Do not have the sway their predecessors did. Chairman Blanco knew what he was doing. And creating ones who don't have sway. Still, there are those you should watch out for. The Vesavian party has always held the most sway, for one. The most populous region, the one that historically dominated the other parts of the country. About cephalic powers. Manichaeism, founded by the prophet Mani Manichaeism, seeks to unite the influences of several works of Astrian and Eastern religions. There is a real world religion called Manichaeism. This is obviously not the same religion, but it does have some of the characteristics of that. It's an interesting what if. Very different religious context to everything. Luckily for you, Comrade Mantova has Pato to contend with now. First secretary at the Vesavian ASCP, so she might... Is she the National Secretariat? She was removed for opposing Mazek's reforms. Cabinet ministers, etc. Oh. Guess she's the one to watch out for. The SID party would be eminent if not for CLP's Zolero. If not for CLP, Zolero was He's considered weak, but I see that Comrade Zola is gaining influence. Interior Minister. Influence. Medea has often faded into the background, but Comrade Dovik is an impressive foe. He has no tolerance for liberals, however. Nor do I. Liberals meaning like capitalists want to reform everything towards capitalism. Yosif Dovik is a Sudlivian Median politician and economist who serves as chairman of economic planning. Oh, that guy. Former economic planning. Okay. I have little to say about the rest. Comrade Melez is quite competent. My deputy, Michael Tal, was a buffoon, and Iskander Dosa is a reliable loyalist. Quietly competent, buffoon, loyalist. Don't you have sway with the hardliners? Some, yes, but I am far from the figure they hold in the most esteem. I was close with Mazik after all. That would be Comrade Vernano if he's still breathing from his cave in Moncherno. The guy is barely alive. Who's held in the most esteem. Otherwise, Sancho's the new champion. Watch out for her. Sancho Yagodina. Ah, the head of the, her? That was a he. Okay. She is the... Foreign Minister. Maybe it was mixing. It seemed like she was the head of the secret police or something. No, maybe I mixed her up with someone else. Dina. I can work with her. Conservative foreign policy, certainly not aligning with the West. I just need to find the right reformers to work with too. Joseph Devik may also be a hardliner. He has too much the personality of a bureaucrat. Perhaps losing power once already has humbled him. Back in my day, there were no hardliners, only crassness and orthodox maximus. I'm not sure why we have imported this term from Alinormia. It's a bit awkward when applied to Artedianism. Titianism. Like Titoism. Sudlivia's great tolerance for markets and cooperative ventures, symbolized by Tedian's novel economic policy and the autonomy given the Cid. It's a point of departure from Alinormia's command economy. Sudliv rhetoric has also historically emphasized national determination, peaceful coexistence, and international solidarity, giving rise to geopolitical rhetoric condemning the AYP. Well, I mean, AYP is necessary. Sancho isn't against the AYP, is she? And she helped defeat Gornick, who was this liberal who would have probably collapsed everything in capitalism. Either way, hardliners believe that the party should make no concessions when it comes to keeping state power. I cannot say that I disagree with the idea. Society cannot be expected to spontaneously develop consciousness without the party driving us towards the construction of socialism. If the system pushes people towards studying socialist theory, the educational system is what pushes people in the right direction. Propaganda, not any of this bureaucratic stuff. What do you think about the reformists? But yeah, communists will be communists. I'm not a communist, to be clear. I'm a democratic socialist. You need propaganda and education. You do not need this massively powerful government. That said, again, overly rapid reform will collapse everything. What do you think about the reformists? The reformists are the legacy of Chairman Mazik. They either believe that he did not go far enough. No, he definitely went far enough. Or they died too soon. If you ask a man who really knew him, he never intended to be a liberal. He only wanted to correct the deviation from Tishin that he saw in Krasny. That is why he still persecute. That is why he still persecute critics of the party. I'm not sure who you could say really leads the reformists now. The leader of the CLP, Andrei Obino, holds little real power outside of Sid. That may change if he's a Yeltsin-type character. Leader of the Sid Labor Party, which is in socialist countries and communist countries, often the capitalist parties adopted names like the whatever Labor Party, but they were really capitalist, not pro-labor at all. Born to a family of radicals who fought in the Sid Civil War and organized with the later prohibited Revolutionary Syndicalist Party. Syndicalists tend towards fascism, if anything. Urbino saw a political career outside of the ruling ASCP, or they tend towards both, a weird mix of fascism and anarchism, actually. Saw a political career outside of the ruling ASCP early in his life. He studied political theory and workplace management at the People's Friendship University of Yekva, returning home to become a prominent supporter of worker self-management and regional autonomy. The right man at the right time, his political ascent coincided with Chairman Mazik's reforms that allowed the CLP into the Congress of Deputies, the Sid Labor Party. Party responsible for both overthrowing the monarchy and requesting Tishin's intervention. Sid three different eras. For a while they were definitely communists or socialists, but it seems they've become a place to which the capitalists rally, from what I'm gathering. Although I may be imposing stuff from what I know of the history of certain other countries in Europe and how the so-called labor parties operate, in certain trade unions like Solidarity operate as capitalist ones. Solero is our resident reformist, but he's pretty spineless. Don't tell him I said that, of course. Or Solero, head of finance. One of the few members in his time and place paid dividends. Oh, being one of the few paid dividends is in benefit from being one of the few first into the ASCP. Controversial report on the inefficiencies of inconsistent pricing of capital costs throughout the country. So ambassador by the Economic Planning Council. Finally, there's their chairman. Finally, there's their comrade Zola. He hasn't really established himself as a leader yet, but I suspect he will soon enough. Interior Ministry. He's a reformist. You're poorer than those who plotted a coup, but coup may have actually been hardliners you report on. So Lero is definitely one to watch out for, more than this guy thinks. Less concerned about Nobino, he has little real power. Sorry, Zola is one to watch out for. Solero is finance guy. Pretty spineless, yeah, that's probably accurate. Zola's the guy to watch out. Is there any... I see, is there anybody else I should look out for? His ever-kind expression suddenly became pointed. I'm sure you know that everybody around you has an agenda. Do not give too much power to any one person, reformist or hardliner, indeed. I would even be wary of your friend Pablo. He is too capable to give him his friendship so lonely. Zola, that is Pablo Zola. Indeed. I am wary of him. He produces a car almost automatically. Ask him what his agenda is point blank, he's not going to answer very truthfully and likely. That you and Pablo are around right now. I appreciate your advice, it's good to have you with me. I'm glad I don't have to extol the virtues of listening to your elders. He inhaled smoke from his cigar and immediately began to cough, gently waving his hand in front of his face to indicate that he was okay. Excuse me, my lungs aren't what they used to be. Have you been feeling well, Anastas? As well as you can expect at my age. Poured a bottle of sparkling water into a rimmed glass before offering it some. Not going to tell me to quit smoking, are you? Being an old man earns you some pleasures, don't you think? He leaned back with reminiscent eyes. Chairman Krasny hated smoking. Did you know that? Detested the smell. Yeah, as did Stalin, if I remember correctly. Historically, he did smell of smoking. It was Nicholas who warned me, Chairman Mazik, I mean. That probably saved my life. Once that Krasny ordered a junior minister exiled from Visigovo just for that smell. He said he'd rather convict him of treason, but the old bastard's lungs would give out before the firing squad got to him. Krasny had that strange sense of humor, one of the things that made him so effective as a statesman. Wait, I thought you denounced Chairman Krasny. Have your feelings changed? That must have been a tough time to be on the Security Council. How did you manage? How'd you manage? Is that why you supported Mazik after Krasny's death? Well, it's not that simple. I had my disagreements with Nicholas. I feel that he was the best voice at the time. At that point, what he unleashed could not have been stopped. Whatever you want to say about him, he kept the country together. And that's all that matters. Brotherhood and unity. The phrase of the revolution, or at least Krasny enshrined it. One more thing about Krasny. He once said that Istria could be the beginning of the end of Sudlivia. You may be surprised to hear me say this. There is a real danger here. You saw the issues that we have faced. Large Vesavian population here in Sudistria, Median minority in the south. most dangerous of all, an independent state to the north. The region is a fertile ground for nationalism, and that's why Krasny cracked down as hard as he did. Until a new Sudlivian is created, one that's free of nationalism and religion. Well, it's not religion that's the problem, but nationalism, for sure. One who holds nothing dearer than brotherhood and unity. Will we be free of this danger? I mean, religion can even support a socialist government. Because after all, Jesus taught people to take care of each other, not to enshrine the evils of greed, which is what capitalism does. Just our own world. I mean, perhaps some people already fit this mantra of the new Sudlivian, just not enough of them yet. Can't shape people by force, look up and Krasny tried. The new Sudlivian is within our lifetime. I'll make sure of it. And how do we achieve that? Remember, as Maxov said, is our material relationships that alter our thinking. Life determines consciousness, not the other way around. Yep. People have no patience for brotherhood, but sometimes it is the other way around. Consciousness can determine life. That's overly narrow. It tends to be one way, but it works both. People have no patience for brotherhood when they are hungry. They have open minds when they are fed. Ensure that the economic foundation for the development of socialism exists, and the people will follow. Indeed, that much is true. With appropriate guidance in the party, of course. He said with an appropriate smile, but you know he meant it. These words have always got my thinking as of all of Mexico's frames. Confess that I'm a humanist. I think people need something to believe in too. Indeed. There is perhaps nothing wrong with thinking that. Just make sure that they don't believe in the wrong things. We're going to have a lot of issues on our hands. Indeed. I agree with them on that. The last part of sunlight splashed against the rooftop as he finished speaking. Accompanied by some breeze, the message was clear. Indeed, of war. Shall we? He slowly rose from his seat and started toward the door. You opened the door for him. Thank you, comrade. His slow pace down the stairs gave you time to think as he reached the windowed central chamber. The rusty light of the city replaced the earlier sun, and the building felt newly cool. From this vantage point, nothing in the city's evening hum suggested trouble of any kind. And next up is a regional security briefing in Sudistria over there. I wonder what's up. Region that could be the end of Sudlivia. Capitalist state right here. Yeah, that's gotta be dealt with if there's any way to do it. Alright, well that's enough for now. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Take care of each other. Be kind to yourselves. And may you always find a guiding star to lead you home. Till next time, comrades, this is Northstar. Adieu. Best luck to you all. This music is so peaceful. Might listen to it for a moment.